I know that you, as a company, you do have your own web presence, so you can't fully, leave everywhere. Cloudflare has done a great job on expanding itself, right? They started off as a content delivery network, kind of just taking share from Akamai, and they've really expanded into a full global POP networking type of company, and then layering on all the security that goes with it. I'm curious, is that something you employ, or I know Akamai does it. There's another company called Fastly that does it as well. Just curious how you're handling your own web presence.
Are you talking about from a CDN perspective, or just in general with?
Yeah, no, from a CDN perspective, yes.
Yeah, so we're a Cloudflare shop. I really like Cloudflare and what they're doing. These days, I think they're even more of a full-fledged or cybersecurity company, looking at what they're dipping their toes into. I mean, they bought Area 1 security, or Area 1 email security, which is a fantastic product. They use it, so they're kind of like a Palo in the making, if you will, just around web presence.
I agree.
So yeah, we're a big fan. Currently, our use is mainly strictly WAF driven, with all the bells and whistles that come along with that. We're looking at them for zero trust, and then I'm honestly talking with them currently about the Area 1 as a backstop to our current email security provider as well. I wouldn't get rid of what we've got, but what Area 1 does in particular with business email compromise, I think, is very interesting, and that's where a lot of current security vendors kind of get stuck. So we'll see how that shakes out.
Really interesting to state that, because you already mentioned that you are an O365 user, and then we all know that they come with their own security suite there. So very interesting that you're interested in layering on a depth of defense, if you will, on that email side.
Yep, that is, to me, email is the one thing that I can wrap it in as many controls as I can, but at the end of the day, we've got to deliver to the end user, and they've got to be able to make a decision on that. And I would prefer to have a lot more controls around it. So Office 365 APT in particular is an add-on. A lot of the good security stuff that Microsoft has is all add-ons, right? With their E5 security mobility suite, if you're not the E5 user. So we can have a whole discussion over why Microsoft does that and if it's good for the world or not, right? APT a couple years ago was not a good product. At this point in time, it's probably better than what it was. I still believe in around email security, you want to be part of the herd. Microsoft's a good place to be, but there's also other good vendors that do very well on detections in general. So like your Proofpoints, your Mimecast, and people like that, who their whole business is detecting malicious email, right?
Certainly, and even people who have the E5 license very often will wrap Mimecast around it as well. Microsoft, of course, yes, that's their MO, isn't it? They'll release a product and then make it better, but they like to plant their flag early, and they like to bundle it so that it stops people from going in other places. And you're right, we could talk about that all day long. They killed Slack with Teams, Zoom with Teams. They're killing Ring Central right now. They've killed a lot of vendors with that strategy.
And it's not necessarily that their products are any better. A lot of the times it's a regression. And I mean, Office 365 and in general, I feel like has had a lot of regressions. You have to learn pretty much every 6 months where new stuff gets added. They're taking Teams in particular and stuff that they used to give you just off of being a subscriber now, are locking it back behind licensing. Simple things like having a central place to change your Teams background or manage it centrally. That's now locked behind a premium license. Doing the same thing with the DLP and the discovery offerings as well, where now you've got PureView or PureVa or whatever it's been marketed as, but that's additional licensing tiers.
Yeah, and I've also heard from a lot of your colleagues and peers too that unless you're paying that super high E5 license, good luck getting a ticket or any customer service out of them as well.
I think it really varies on what product you're talking about. We've had stuff that's been kind of a surprise that we were able to get a hold of somebody, and then we've had stuff. Well, we can contact Microsoft with this obvious bug, and it's just nothing. Yeah, and we've spent time trying to figure out how to report it, right?
That's
It's
frustrating.
frustrating.
It's
They're a big
frustrating when
company
you're
for a
writing
reason.
checks that big.
Right. That's exactly it.
Yeah. Real quickly, I'm going to go back to Cloudflare here, show you. This is looking at, for everyone who's not staring at the screen at the moment, I pulled up all the vendors across information security, cut that by at least 50 citations. There's a lot in the space, as we all know, security is a crowded area. But Cloudflare, actually in security, we're seeing a decrease for some reason. This could partially be because we also broke the vendor into our networking and cloud areas. So it could just be seeing a little bit of a kind of data shift. But overall, when I talk to you and your peers about the efficacy of Cloudflare, they're extremely excited. You mentioned you use them for web access firewall. They also do DDoS and bot protection. I'm wondering if that's included in your WAF, as you mentioned earlier.
It is.
Okay.
There is additional layer of bot protection in particular that they offer these days. They're taking a little bit of the Microsoft and Palo Alto approach of differentiate different levels of service.
Okay.
So we've got the base bot protection, but if needed, you could go in and quickly add that as well. They make it very easy to add these days.
I appreciate that. It's funny, you also mentioned them for zero trust, and I think very often when I think of that name, I think of Palo Alto, I think of Zscaler. Those are the kind of the names I think of, Netscope even. So I'm just curious if you don't mind talking to me a little bit about their zero trust roadmap. You said you're not there yet, but you're considering going with them. What other services do they have on that side?
So are you asking about Palo for zero trust or Cloudflare?
I was curious because I mean, when you mentioned you were looking at Cloudflare for it, and I'm just saying that normally for me, that my mind goes to Palo and Zscaler. So, either or, just maybe compare what Cloudflare is offering versus what you know in the space.
I have a lot of opinions about this right now. So
please.
Palo Alto, we're a Prisma
Okay.
a Prisma Access customer and have
Yep.
been for even before the pandemic. We were probably one of the first ones in the Southeast to really buy into Prisma Access. I thought that in particular was a fantastic offering at the time. With the cloud managed, firewall endpoints, I don't have to think about giving us a single pane of glass to effectively put my network boundary wherever my laptops go. So we bought into that early. We had it deployed. The pandemic hit, and I remember they came to me in February and like, we're going to send everybody home. How does that impact our kind of network posture? Exactly. I was like, it doesn't change it at all.
Go ahead,
I
guys.
don't care.
I'm all ready for you.
Yeah. I mean, we were already doing SSL inspection at that point in time. So
Amazing.
I really like that product. And the whole reason why we went with that over Zscaler was Zscaler at the time was only doing 80 and 443, which is, that's fine. I think Zscaler's web content filtering was a lot stronger than Palo's. It probably still is, but as we kind of look over what a threat might materialize into, if I'm a malicious actor and I want to get something out, I might wrap that in UDP 53 and send it out DNS, what looks like a DNS call. And if I'm on the Zscaler network, Zscaler's not going to see that. I think they've come back since then. I mean, it's been 2 or 3 years, and they've got an always-on VPN solution now. Palo is a victim of their own success. Their support in particular across their line has just deteriorated year over year, especially on their core product on their next gen firewall solution. It's very frustrating to me for the amount of money that we pay for Palo to continuously productize their support levels. Premium used to be the one to get, and now I think they added the platinum support, and they've got one that you've got to be one of those big or multi-million-dollar a year customers just to afford their support. And it is very hard to love that product as much, to continue to love it and continue to want to invest in it with the support being as poor as what it is. So as we kind of look forward, and I'm paying those Prisma Access renewals, right? And I'm looking at what Cloudflare is doing, especially with their zero trust. It starts to look like it's a lot more affordable. I mean, I get everything that Palo offers, but I'm not using 100% of that offering anyway. So if I can get close enough to cut my costs in half, we'll certainly move to it and deal with that, migration. Or we'll move, our privileged users over to it. or maybe just something to, because the costs are so
Yeah.
much less. Yeah. So it's a no-brainer. We're working through it. The problem that we have is that we've integrated Prisma Access
Sure.
very tightly across the organization. So it's going to be hard to kind of unearth it. Vendor lock-in, it's the tell oldest time, right? Once they get in there and they crawl in there, it's hard to get them out.
That was absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate that. That was a wonderful assertion of the situation. Yeah, vendor lock-in is a tough thing, particularly in security, and particularly when you're dealing with some regulated aspects like you are, Damien. And sounds like you really are just a very thoughtful CISO, and your organization is very, very lucky to have you. To be prepared for these type of things before they happen, that's impressive. I don't hear that too often.